Hello, horror hounds. The Amityville Horror in 1979, after it was released, became the most commercially successful independent movie of all time. And according to some of the extras on the DVD, retained that title for 8 years. So a sequel was inevitable. Now, in my review of that movie, I touched upon my stance with regards to the Lutzes, their claims for the house. I don't believe them. I do believe financial gain was the motive for perpetuating the hoax, and I explained that I felt that building a hoax upon the historical real life slaughter of 6 members of a family by the seventh member, Ronnie DeFeo Jr., the eldest child, eldest son, was pretty fucking reprehensible. So this is the video where you get to, uh, with clear conscience, call me an absolute hypocrite. Before we get into the movie itself, I'm very tickled by the fact that George Lutz had, after Jay Anson's book, The Amityville Horror, based on their supposed experiences, became a runaway bestseller. George Lutz with John G. Jones arranged for follow-ups. Apparently the evil followed them, and their trials and tribulations continued, which you can read in John G. Jones's Amityville Horror Part 2 and Part 3, and also I think he did a collection of short stories, Amityville Horror, The Evil Escapes, by which time all pretension of being factual accounts are completely lost forever, and these are works of pure fiction and advertised as such. I'm quite tickled by the fact that George Lutz presumed that Amityville II would be a film based on the novel Amityville Part 2, but he basically got completely sidelined, and the actual film that we're going to be talking about was based on a book by Hans Holzer, a self-proclaimed paranormal investigator who wrote a book which played a big part in my childhood and my development of horror, a book called Murder in Amityville, which looked at the DeFeo case, the family that had lived there before the Lutzes and for years, and who were all murdered by the eldest son. One night, she shot them all with a rifle as they slept. There were strange circumstances to the murder, why no one heard the gunshots and got up, why they were all found in bed, lying face down, with no evidence of having been drugged, and with Ronnie in his testimony saying he heard voices telling him to kill them, led Holzer to spin the yarn of off the back of the Amityville Horror of yet more supernatural terrors in the house. Let's ignore the fact that Ronnie DeFeo has changed his story a number of times, citing first of all that the family was killed by people involved with the mafia, then the voices thing, then he tried to pin everything on his elder sister. Apart from her murder, he had to shoot her after she'd shot everyone else. I mean, the guy's a fucking psycho. He's a mass murderer of his own family, and we'll just leave him in prison if that's all right. So I'm quite tickled that George Lutz didn't get more of that sweet movie moolah, I guess, until the fucking remake happens in 2005. But I have to be conflicted by the fact that even though this is a nominal sequel, and even though the family in it are called, is it the Montellis? Oh, I forget. They're renamed. I believe it's the Montellis. It doesn't say on the back. I was expecting it to, so that's my fault for not doing my fucking research. And even though this film is actually quite clearly set in a time period after the original film, you just have to look to the appearance, the sort of ubiquity of the Walkman to realise that it's set after the time period that the first film is set in all but name. This is the DeFeo family and the DeFeo murders with the serial numbers filed off. So part of me sort of is honor bound to say that this film is coming from a really sleazy place, let's be honest. But it's so gloriously sleazy. This is an exploitation movie through and through. It's an 80s horror film directed by an Italian director, and it comes with everything associated with that wonderful combination. Italian horror directors in the 80s are my guiding stars. They're just so out there, so bonkers, so unfettered by the conventions of normal Western cinema that um, this is kind of a sleazy exploitation movie par excellence. I mean, if they'd have stripped out all of the supernatural elements and made it a true crime story, this still would have been one of the sleaziest, nastiest, grimiest true crime movies you ever could have hoped for. What they've done is that they've gone, the pendulum has completely swung away from the sort of quasi-documentary, most of the film shot in bright sunlight, set up, not showing anything too overtly supernatural, no real demons, no real ghosts, to completely the other way. This is gonzo territory. And the family turn up and they seem to be pretty fucked up to begin with, so there's some argument as to whether the house is really adversely affecting them or not, or whether it's already there. There are beds spinning around and shit happening within the first 10 minutes, scenes of domestic abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, my God, incest, suggested, I was going to say marital rape, but rape is rape, so there's rape in there, and obviously culminating in murder. And I say culminating, but the murders happen pretty much at the end of the second act. Then it spins out into a wild, sort of Exorcist-light third act, which really starts dragging the film down until you get to the very ending, and then it just goes completely spectacularly bonkers and sort of nihilistic, and the priest does the weird Damien Karras thing of inviting the demon into him, but then he's just left in a house with his neck and hands pulsating, just presumably possessed and then stuck there. The choice that Karras makes in The Exorcist, that the priest makes in this, has always struck me as a slightly odd choice to invite the demon into them as a way of saving the possessed person. I don't think that's a method approved by the Vatican, but I guess it makes for great cinema. And let me just think of the things I thought to talk about. There's a phenomenal shot where Sonny is left alone in the house, and the camera in this acts as a POV for the demonic force, and it stalks him around the house, and sometimes we're it, and sometimes he's looking at us and can't see us as the demon. Sometimes he then reacts and does see us. The camera moves about him, over him. There's an amazing shot where it comes up behind him, then up over his head and down, so he's upside down, and then spins round and rights him back up again, and he starts backing away from the camera again, following him up the stairs all the way up to his attic room, pushing him back onto the bed, and then from above rising and falling down on him. It's clearly a rape scene, and putting us in the position, first of all, of the rapist invading demon, and then off to the side watching. But even as we're off to the side and he's reacting to the demon force descending above me, every time the thing descends, we still zoom in and out. We're never let off the hook. We're completely complicit, and we're made to feel grubby by this. Once he's possessed and he seduces his elder sister, I can remember when I was a child watching that film, that scene made me feel really strange and queasy, as it's supposed to. It's taboo busting. It's exploitative in the highest regard, and it's supposed to do that. But as a young kid watching that, there was this queasy mixture of nudity, and the girl in it is phenomenally beautiful, and nudity, but at the same time, just the completely taboo sense that these characters are brother and sister. And when he brings out her panties that he kept from the laundry, there was just a strange, queasy mixture in my stomach, a sort of fluttering prepubescent excitement at the sex and the nudity, but also mixed with a wrongness, which kind of runs all the way throughout this film. This film has a really queasy attitude towards sex. This same sister character openly discusses with her brother her parents' sex life, and that she believes that their father is raping their mother. And when she goes to confess her relationship with her brother, the priest seems to want to know all the intimate details. And later on, the demon suggests that the priest is sexually attracted to the girl. There's no normal baseline of sexual attraction or sexual action in this movie whatsoever. Everything is either an act of sexual violence or sexual taboo, all tied in with this demonic presence. There's a moment in the film, it's really quick, but I find it absolutely fascinating. Once Sonny is going around the house possessed with that awful deformed face and the rifle, it's a really tense and really horrible extended scene of casual violence that I really think the film should have ended on, but there you go, we have The Exorcist-like third act. When his sister wakes and realises that something's wrong and leaves her room, the camera follows her as she gets out of bed and leaves, but then she moves out of frame and the camera's left on her rocking chair with a doll in the chair. All well and good, you might say, but we're there for a few seconds and it's a full-size doll. I've sort of described it as a slutty doll. It's sort of like a cloth version of an inflatable doll. She's got big red made-up lips, made-up eyes, clearly sort of ragdoll cloth breasts, and she's dressed in a corset and suspenders. And it's this weird childhood doll as sort of like sex toy, Stark type stuff, which this movie is absolutely littered with. When the priest turns up after the murders and the bodies are being brought out, what purpose does it serve to open the body bags and reveal the dead children so he can bless them? It's all wrong. It's all gloriously wrong. It's all wrong for the right reasons, if I'm making any sense. The secret room that was in the first film, the small red painted room, is now a huge sort of brickwork, dripping, muddy, sort of sewage filled thing that would be much more at home as a gateway to hell in Lucio Fulci's Beyond. I mean, that really reeks of Fulci's Gateway to Hell movies. The bit at the end where the possessed Sonny turns away from the priest towards the corner, and when he turns back, it's taken on the form of his sister, his dead sister, now all made up like her doll. Bright red lipstick, eyeliner, eyeshadow, licking her lips, trying to seduce the priest. It's sexuality gone sour. And Christ, the priest who ignores his intuition that this family is in trouble and doesn't pick up the phone to her as she's calling for help from the house. And later on, after she's dead, he receives a call from her, from beyond the grave, or the house calling to taunt him. And it is her message of help that he listens to. It's a wild movie. It's crazy and it's bonkers. We haven't even touched upon Burt Young. Essentially, what would happen if Paulie from Rocky had a family and moved to Long Island. I absolutely buy that he would start beating his wife and taking a belt to the kids. But this is such a nihilistic movie from the start. Absolutely everyone in this is damned and nothing will save them. There's no redeeming faith in Christ that you get in The Exorcist. The devil wins, again, like in the first one, but this time the devil wins big because everyone is sort of covered in the filth of this amazing movie, which still, as schlocky as it is, still pushes those taboos and pushes the envelope of what is acceptable, still very powerful, still has the power to shock, is probably one of the most underrated horror sequels of all time, because no one talks about this movie. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is starting to gain some traction. It's rightly so, starting to gain, people are piping up and saying, no, actually, I really like it. I've always liked it. People are re-evaluating Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and saying there is something here that is worth going back and looking at. And I think Amityville 2 works in a similar fashion, although I think the subtext of Nightmare 2 is more palatable. There's no denying some of the parallels. An evil supernatural force invading the body of a young man, but this just has that Italian flair and that exploitative touch. You won't see a movie like this. It's trashy. It's grimy. It will leave you feeling dirty. But from the first frame, it's a movie that aims for that and really revels in it. So on its own terms, it's a great movie. Objectively, if you're not a horror fan, you're probably going to think it's obscene filth. But to my mind, it's the best movie in the Amityville franchise, and if you've seen it before, you'll know what I'm talking about, and maybe you'll want to rewatch it again, if only just to check out that, what I call the slutty doll. Such a weird thing to put in there, and it's no accident. Someone had to design that shot and create that prop and put it there. All done on purpose. If you haven't seen the film, then even everything I've told you now, don't assume that the film's been spoiled for you, because to see it unfold is a kind of horrific car crash of wonder. I'm amazed it got made. It's gloriously sick, and I kind of find it perversely, endlessly entertaining. So that's my take on Amityville 2.